friends. Welcome back to Where the Macabre Things Are. Things are looking a little different because I finally figured out how OBS works. My husband used to be a Twitch streamer, and so I was like, "Can you please show me?" Because I'm so tired of recording on my phone. It's fine. The quality's fine, but the process of taking it from phone to editor to PC to editor to YouTube, it's a really tedious, long process, and I was just tired of it. So hopefully things look good, things sound good. So first we'll do some channel news, some Molly news. My book Dark Bloom just hit 100 ratings on Amazon. That's such a milestone, and I am so thankful to all my readers. So that's really awesome. Also, I am now a book reviewer for FanFi Addict. I am really excited to be a part of this awesome group. I love another platform that I can shout about self-published books that I've read. So keep your eyes out for that. I may post traditionally published book reviews here and there if it's a book that I just absolutely adored, can't stop thinking about, cough, Red Rising cough. But mostly it'll be my way of just getting more information about indie books, self-pub books out there. Today's topic, we are going to compare books to their movies. So I am the type of person who, if I watch a movie and I see that there's a book, that it's based off a book, I'm pretty excited to go check it out. I know there's some people, some odd, strange people in the world that if they watch a movie and then find out it's a book, they just can't read the book. I mean, no judgment, and I won't name any names, but there are people like that. I'm just kidding. Everybody has their preference. I think that I like reading the books after watching movies because I know for sure I'm going to know everything that's going on, but I also enjoy finding what's different and seeing if it's exactly the same, seeing what they've changed. Sometimes the endings are completely different. So that's pretty fun to me. Let's get into this. My first book that I will talk to you about, World War Z. So I watched the movie World War Z while I was in the middle of listening to this on Audible. So first of all, on Audible, the cast of characters, which there are a lot of characters, are played by celebrity voices. It definitely made for a very entertaining book to listen to. The book is done in interview style. So the world has befallen this zombie virus, and the book goes through interviews with people from all over the world who survived through the Great Zombie War. This could be military personnel, medical personnel, civilians, pharmaceutical company employees, just a vast array of people who lived through this. So with interview style, we get funny stories, we get scary stories, we get politically charged stories, a really, really interesting take on the zombie genre. The movie is very linear. Beginning, middle, end, we focus on one person's story as one guy kind of travels the world trying to figure out who's patient zero, how do we stop this virus. It's a great zombie movie. The end was a little too tidy for me. Part of what I loved about the book is that it's really messy, and there's a lot of things that go into stopping not just a deadly virus, but deadly zombies. And there's politics behind it that have to be taken into consideration. There's public safety, there's military strategy. The fact that the military had to completely rearrange themselves and retrain themselves to fight an enemy that doesn't fear anything. It was just so riveting. The movie just kind of had this happily ever after, and that was it, and have a nice day, but it was a good watch. I was glad I watched it. So book versus movie, book all day. Next book, one of my favorites of all time. Oh, let me get this. American Psycho. Okay, I watched this movie first, and I remember at the end of it, my brain was just shattered. I was like, wait, what? Like, he did all these things. What did I just watch? but I loved it. And I had had it on my list for years to read the book. The biggest reason I wanted to read the book was because I thought it would give me all the answers. I thought it would tell me, did Patrick Bateman actually kill these people, or was he just insane, or was the whole thing just an entire metaphor? The book gave me no answers, but I loved reading it. I listened to it on Audible actually, and there was an interview with Bret Easton Ellis at the end, and the interviewer actually asked him, so we all want to know, did Patrick Bateman kill all those people? And he said, I didn't know when I was writing it, and I still don't know today. And I was like, cool, that's a great answer. But honestly, I think it's almost better that way. Bret Easton Ellis says, does it make it any better or worse to think one way or the other? And the answer is no. And I think that's a brilliant way to answer that question. Because we don't actually know for certain, it makes it so much more interesting. But if I can offer my opinion, I think it's a huge metaphor. Bret Easton Ellis also says that this book is the closest thing to an autobiography he's ever written, which tells a lot. He said he spent some time in New York. He felt so out of place. Obviously, well, probably didn't kill anybody, but I think it's a beautiful metaphor for how we can try to fit in so hard, but the real person that's beneath will break through and hopefully not murder anybody, but it'll come out. It'll be there, and there's just really no stopping it. And how, like, isolating trying to be somebody else can be. Isolating and just, like, painful, even to a physical point. So the movie does a great job of staying along with the plot points and the themes of this book, the conformity, the painful conformity, the dark humor themes. I don't recommend the book lightly to people because it is quite gruesome. It makes the movie look like a Disney movie. There's a lot of graphic, gory violence, but that wasn't the issue for me. The issue was the violence that occurred in the bedroom. So just know that if you plan to read it, if I recommend it to somebody, I do warn them of that because there were parts that made me quite uncomfortable. Now, I enjoy that to a point. You know, what is a horror author actually doing if they're not making you feel uncomfortable? And I enjoy that. Like, get me out of my comfort zone, like pitch me something that doesn't sit with me right. I like that. Not everybody does. So, book versus movie, book all the way. Our next book. You'll have to give me a minute. This one. Oh man. Oh. Oh gosh. Oh. Look at that chunky book. Can you guess what it is? Well, okay, you know it's a Stephen King book, but here we go. Look at the look how big that book is. Look, that's my hand. Oh my gosh. Okay. All right, enough of that. It by Stephen King. We're going to talk about the book compared to the new movies, chapter 1 and 2. I have seen the original. I was not a fan. I'm sorry. I know there's people that, just love the original so much and they prefer that, but it was just not my thing. So the premise of the book, we have kids who are basically fighting against this entity that displays itself as your greatest fear. They have to, form strong bonds and strong friendships and defeat it, or try. The movie does a great job of carrying this along and sticking to the book's main point. I definitely thought the movie kind of threw a lot of CGI at you to try and scare you, which is interesting because the scariest moments of the movie were not, you could replicate this. I could replicate this right now with my phone and it would be scarier than the CGI moments of big scary monsters. What I'm talking about is so in chapter 1, when the boy is in the library and he is flipping through that book on the history of Derry, and that picture of the boy's head in the tree just keeps getting he flips the page and it's closer and closer and closer. So he's freaked out. The music, I'm sure, is tense. But if you notice, in the background, everyone in the library has stopped and is looking straight at him. Creepy. In chapter 2, when Bev goes to her old apartment or house, I want to say it's an apartment, it could just be a house, it's where she lived when she was a child, and her Family's gone. There's an old woman living there, and she's little and sweet, and she's like, "Would you like some tea? Come in." And she's looking at Bev is looking at some things on the walls, some pictures, some trinkets, and the woman is in the background in the hallway, just staring at her down the hallway. And you're like, what? Then she turns into a big scary monster and chases her, whatever. That's it. I don't know. It gets a heart rate going, I guess. But it was those little moments just before that were so frightening. Anyway, the book, of course, has so much more information. King builds you a picture of Derry. King builds Derry in your brain, brick by brick. And you get a feel for not just the kids involved, not just their families, not just the terrifying events they're dealing with at the moment, but you get a feeling for this town as a whole and the history of this town as a whole. And I mean, what else are you going to put in this thing? Come on, this thing's. Look at that. Anyway, you get a ton of backstory information. You get the backstories of the children and their families. You get the backstory of their parents and the milkman and the guy that lives down the street and the guy that lives down the street, some guy that guy knew 20 years ago. No, I'm kidding. But I mean, it's King. So there's a lot of information. But what that does is just give you an idea of how this particular entity has been terrorizing this town for so long and how dire it is to get rid of it. So book versus movie. Definitely choosing the book, but the movies are certainly worth a watch. Definitely good scary movies. Book 4, I Am Legend. I Am Legend, the book, features the guy, just the guy. Well, he is the guy. He's the guy. I think he thinks he's the last guy on Earth because the entire world has been infected with vampirism. So during the day, he does his supply runs. He, fixes up anything outside his house that needs to be fixed because he's, of course, got it boarded up and sealed off. And there's garlic involved, and sometimes he kills some sleeping vampires. At night, he has to lock himself inside his home because the vampires stand outside his home at night and just shout and try to get him to come out of his house. This is a lot of internal thoughts and dialogue, in my opinion, because he's pretty much in his house the whole time. But it's a lot of how his family passed away, and he's also actively looking at blood cells and trying to. I don't think he's actually trying to find a cure at this point. He's trying to detect the infection in the blood cells so that he can then probably start on maybe finding a cure. So that's I Am Legend, the book. The movie. The movie is a guy who is on an island because the bridge over to the island has been cut off from the rest of the world, so he's essentially been quarantined. He also feels like the only man left on the earth. The movie delivers really great insight as to how that must feel. I mean, he's got a dog with him, so he talks to his dog. He's talking to mannequins. I mean, having full conversations with them, sets them up in a little store. So every time he goes to check out a movie, he, is like, "Hey, Fred, how are you today?" And then he, stands next to other people browsing. And it's funny, but at the same time, it's really sad because you got to think if I were in that situation, I'd be doing the same thing. I would be having legitimate conversations with mannequins. So he is actively trying to find a cure. He has an entire laboratory in his basement. He is a scientist. He's capturing these creatures. Oh, we need to talk about the creatures. The creatures are like if zombies got infected with vampirism and then worked out of the gym for 20 years straight. They can't go out in the daylight. They are scary. They can run. They can hunt you down. They also seem to have some other characteristics that he notices throughout the movie, like almost human emotions in a way, but not like the good kind. Definitely some pack instinct. It's they're frightening. So he'll capture these, he'll inject them with some test cures to see how that affects them. And it's so good. It's Will Smith. Come on. Like, so book versus movie. I choose the movie on this one. I Am Legend. Great movie. Our last book versus movie will be Bird Box. I watched Bird Box first. I loved the movie. This is one that I did not know was a book until I watched the movie. And I said, yeah, I'm going to read that. So this one is hard because I'm going to say I love both about as equally. Bird Box has an entity, a creature, a thing. You don't get to see it. And if people view it with their eyes, or as we learn, even in like third party ways, they will kill themselves. So our main character is Mallory. She's pregnant and she starts staying with this group of people. They're all strangers to each other pretty much, and they're just hiding out in a house trying to survive. Of course, they have the windows covered up. If they go outside, they have to wear a blindfold. What I loved about this movie more was the romantic interest that Mallory ends up forming a relationship with. Reason being is I am a sucker for apocalyptic relationships, and not just romantic ones, community ones, family ones. I have a really big interest in how people function socially in a world where there is nothing that obligates them to each other. What makes them stick around? What makes them leave? Why do they insist on protecting? It's really interesting and fascinating to me, and this was one of those post-apocalyptic relationships that I just really enjoyed. What I loved about the book more, towards the end, I'm going to try to say this like as spoiler free as I can. Towards the end, there is an event that occurs that is quite a turning point for Mallory. In the movie, she has the assistance of her love interest, her romantic boo. He helps her in this situation. In the book, he does not, and she's left to fight for survival, not just for herself, not just for her newborn baby, but also another newborn baby, because there were 2 pregnant women in this group. So let's unpack that. Caring for a newborn in today's society is hard. I've had 2 kids. I know that there were times that I just wanted to throw in the towel. Just, it is a lot. It is a lot on you, physically, emotionally, everything. It's a lot. So take a woman who's just had a newborn, give her another newborn, and then make her fight for her life. That's terrifying stuff. I loved how this was laid out in the book because I was on the edge of my seat. I could not put it down. I couldn't turn it down. I was listening to it on audio, so I don't know what the correct phrasing for that is. It was very well done. Josh Malerman is a great author. I really love a lot of his books, so it was no surprise Bird Box was my introduction to Josh Malerman as an author. But because I love the movie so much, I figured I would love the book. I was not wrong. So, book versus movie. You know what? I chose really easily on the first 4. I'm going with both on this one. If you haven't seen the movie, watch it. If you haven't read the book, go read it. They're both fantastic. So that concludes my book versus movie segment. Maybe I'll do some more if this is of any interest. If you want to comment and tell me what book you loved but hated its movie adaptation, or vice versa, what movie you loved and hated the book version, or just tell me what you agreed with. Maybe you have some hot takes, some differing opinions on what we've gone over today. Let me know. Yeah, just drop them in the comments there. Tell me what you think. So thanks so much for watching. I appreciate all of you. I hope everyone is having a great day of reading, and stay macabre.